Okay, this is number 4 in my story of life with the Ted Bundy of Colorado, and waking up out of my sleep, trying to understand what had gone on in my life, a little bit of what's gone on in my family's life, why maybe my mother was the way she was, my grandmother, why some of the women in my family may not have picked the men that had real deep conversion in their own soul, awaken their conscience. So I learned some deep lessons with Michael, and I think I want to share a few of those right now. I'm going to talk about before I ever actually married him. There was something that happened. And because I'd always lied, I was an outside of the cup girl. I'm talking about dead religion where you just do your own thing, your own way, right? And then harden your heart, I was pretty messed up because I didn't have a mom that helped me count the cost. And I couldn't hear that little voice inside of me telling me what to do. So when the first date I went on with them, I had this like, warning, 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 run for your life, run for your life. But I never listened to that voice. Even situations, even in my childhood, that came to me about maybe God was trying to talk to me when I felt bad about doing this, bad about doing that. But I always chucked that off, and I didn't have an adult to teach me how to read my own mail and how to stop condemning myself in what I was allowing. So I got somebody just like me who was condemning themselves in what they were allowing, because it's all outside cup religion, not inward conversion religion, where you actually pay attention to that still small voice. So we were the perfect match. And through the course of time with him, I had to face some kind of deep truth about myself. And after my son was born, I was pretty convinced he was having a relationship with his secretary. He had probably 15 or 20 people working for him back then, and a husband and a wife, but something inside me said something not good is going on here. But I was pretty good at being snowed by him. He was definitely cunning, crafty, and deceitful, and had it down to a fine art. Actually, he was a very smart criminal, and that's why they couldn't actually catch him, because he would wear size 15 boots to a crime when he only wore size 12. So he did a lot of really intelligent things. Somebody, as a matter of fact, committing crimes, being vexed in your conscience like that is kind of like a thrill and a turn on, like a heroin addiction. And that's what I realized about myself. I never would have picked somebody that I would have peace with or love, because I grew up in a war, being hated by men and looking down. It's kind of like we attract ourselves to what's familiar. So I know there's just so many details to this story. It's hard to pick the ones that might be the most meaningful, but I had some real awakening times in my own conscience. One of them was when my children were in a bathtub, and I realized I was making them pay emotionally, because I wasn't getting what I needed from the man in my life. And a lot of my relationship with Michael even had a lot more to do with what I had to gain in that relationship rather than what I had to give. And one thing that really came to me, there's this list of things God hates in Proverbs 6. Pride, which I think pride and lying are kind of the same thing, are the first two on the list. And you know what I realized in somebody who wouldn't even go talk to his brother, who is a clinical psychologist that runs a clinic that treats sexual offenders with 20 psychologists, that he's, employed. Why would his brother never go talk to his brother about his problem? And you know what I realized through the course of time is that all of the help we got was my initiative. It was never really his initiative. He kind of really liked that catch me if you can kind of game. And a lot of people are like that inwardly, where they just don't deal with stuff. They're always vexed inside. They're screwed up. They're messed up because they don't go to war in their own soul to protect their own good conscience. And that's what Sullivan had to bring into my life. But through the course of time, I started being able to drop any kind of selfish motivation in my interaction with him and realized he was kind of like a dead man walking. I knew he was really screwed up. I just didn't understand why. And the details and all the crimes are very involved, but I don't really want to talk about this in these videos. And there was a lot that went on during all those details, but I did start kind of crying out to God. I felt like I was in a prison. We had a nice house for our age. He had a great job with employees. People respected him in the community. Everything looked good on the outside, but I was a troubled soul on the inside. And, I was crying out to God to let me out of the prison I was in. I knew I was still trapped in the darkness, but I didn't understand it. And I was just asking God to open my eyes. And really, there's kind of something that happened after that when I started getting sincere with God and really going deep into my own motivations. And I started talking to him about being a prideful liar. How that's the stuff that God hates the most, because we just take everybody down. People that are prideful and they lie and they have a messed up soul because they don't go to war in their own good conscience. They just kind of mess up everybody on the trail of their crimes, even if it's just being mean to people or whatever they do. We all affect each other. So I was really embracing that and taking a look and trying to understand my own past, what had gone on in my own past and why, so I could make different choices myself instead of just being stuck in what's a familiar rut. And a sheriff called one day, and it's like I could see through all the bullshit. I just could see through all the manipulation and control. I thought the sheriff wanted him to do construction work. And he talked, and he had a good story. But it's like I knew that everything he was saying was a bunch of BS. And I said to him, Michael, my God, we've got every kind of therapy anybody can ever get. We've gotten involved in all kinds of healing of memories, visualize Jesus in your memories, casting out devils. We've tried about every therapy and counseling there is in the face of the earth. And I don't know, I think you actually probably committed a crime. He actually started shaking, and for a powerful, strong man to shake in front of me was odd. That had never happened before. And he ran out the door. And I went next door and I said, something really bizarre just happened with Michael, because the people on both sides of us were actually pastors of a big church we were going to at that time. And the lady started talking to me about a crime where the guy jumped off a 30-foot cliff and escaped. And so I said, yeah, Michael came home with a pretty messed up ankle on Friday, I think, or whatever it was. This was probably a Monday. And a whole roll of activity started happening after that led to eventually him confessing only through the coercion of me not talking to him anymore, not because it was his idea. Even when we had a couple of friends that were lawyers, we showed up in a park with a pastor and the sheriff's department and the friends that were lawyers, and they started saying, don't confess, let's manipulate and control this, Michael, right? We went down to the sheriff's department and he wouldn't tell the truth about anything. So we went home and the nightmare really began. So his brother, the clinical psychologist, I think I ended up calling him at some point too, and he came over and said, I can't believe you'd ever hurt a fly, Michael, He was pretty perplexed about the life that his brother had been leading ever since before I knew him. And again, all those things in my past with him, because I was so dead in my own conscience, I didn't pay attention to the voice. And really, that's what I want to draw a thread through this whole story. When you don't have parents that can help you wake up in your conscience and understand that that's really the voice of God, you're not going to teach your kids to do it either. So there was a process that went on with my own children, though, and I realized, having children, I was thinking like a child, acting like a child, speaking like a child myself. So my children were even the ones sent to me to reflect my baby-like behavior so I could actually grow up. And how many people are actually sent to us that have something to teach us, to help us grow up? Jesus is all about the ministry of reconciliation, but we can't wash somebody's feet like Jesus showed us how to do if we're not reconciled to God ourselves. And I think that's why there's so much madness in a lot of church denominational situations where people actually don't even understand the movie that's right in front of their face that they're supposed to be learning something from. I'm going to stop this now and move on to the next one.